Have you ever been cut out of your own family's holiday? Not after a blow-up, not after some dramatic falling out, but simply because your job title wasn't impressive enough to sit at the table? 5 days before Thanksgiving, my mother called me with a message so calm it almost felt polite. Your brother is bringing his new girlfriend home. She comes from money. Your sister doesn't want you at dinner. Your job in childcare would make us look bad in front of her. I said, I understand, and I hung up. What none of them knew was that I had been quietly managing a $12 million inheritance, the exact money my picture-perfect sister was counting on to fund her entire future. And when they showed up at my door 5 days later in a full panic, nothing went the way any of us expected. My name is Nora Callahan, I'm 34 years old, and this is that story. The call came on a Sunday evening in late November. I was sitting at my kitchen table, marking up activity plans for the week ahead, when my mother's name lit up my screen. Sandra Callahan has a way of delivering bad news, wrapped in reasonable tones, as if the wound she's about to open is just a minor inconvenience requiring your cooperation. Nora, she began, we need to go over the holiday plans. I set down my highlighter. In our family, that phrase has never once led anywhere good. She explained that my younger sister, Cassie, was bringing home her boyfriend, a man named Brent Whitmore from a wealthy real estate family, and that first impressions mattered enormously. Then came the part that felt like stepping onto ice you didn't know was thin. Cassie feels it would be better if you sat this one out. Your line of work. Childcare, working with special needs kids. It's admirable, of course, but Brent's family has a certain image. We don't want any awkward conversations about salaries. I have a degree in early childhood development, I said. I've been doing this for 9 years. She made a sound that wasn't quite agreement and wasn't quite apology. I know, sweetheart. It's just one holiday. I said I understood and ended the call. I taught myself that phrase over a decade of family dinners, where my achievements were met with polite silence and Cassie's career wins were announced like headlines. I understood when my promotion went unmentioned, but Cassie's new apartment got a 20-minute discussion. I understood when I wasn't included in the family photo for the holiday card because the photographer charged extra. I understood when my mother sent an email asking me to contribute $2,500 toward Cassie's birthday party, reasoning that since I didn't have children of my own, my money was essentially communal. I transferred the funds the same day. I always did. Those two words, I understand, had become the most expensive sentence I'd ever learned. That Tuesday, I opened an email I'd been avoiding for 3 weeks. It was from a woman named Christine Avery, an estate attorney who had managed my grandmother's affairs for nearly 2 decades. Subject line, Annual Trust Review, Loretta Callahan Estate. My grandmother, Loretta, had passed away 18 months earlier at the age of 82. She was the only person in my family who made me feel like I took up exactly the right amount of space. She drove 4 hours to attend my college graduation while my parents sent a card. She took me to dinner after my first job offer and told me that the work I'd chosen mattered more than most people would ever admit. 2 months before she died, she held my hand and said something I hadn't fully understood until now. You're going to need this someday, Nora. When that day comes, don't be afraid to use it. The email from Christine confirmed the trust held assets totaling just over $12 million. Cassie was the sole beneficiary. I was the sole trustee with full discretionary authority over distributions. I had kept this information to myself for 18 months, partly because I didn't want my family's attitude toward me to be contaminated by money, and partly because I genuinely wasn't ready to carry that kind of weight. But sitting alone in my apartment on Thanksgiving evening with a reheated plate of food from the grocery deli, I started reconsidering. Not revenge. My grandmother wasn't a revenge kind of woman, but clarity, accountability. The right to stop pretending that being dismissed by my own family was something I simply had to absorb. Thanksgiving came and went without me. At 8:30 that evening, Cassie sent a photo. The whole family around my grandmother's old mahogany dining table, 4 plates set, 4 people smiling. Brent sat beside Cassie looking comfortable and at ease. The caption read, "He said we seem like such a grounded family, haha." I stared at that word for a long time. Grounded. Then I called my best friend Dana, a woman who has listened to 9 years of Callahan family stories and still picks up on the first ring. When I finished talking, she was quiet for a moment. "Nora," she said, "your grandmother didn't choose you by accident. She knew what she was doing. Maybe it's time you did too. The next morning, I called Christine Avery and scheduled a meeting for that afternoon. Her office was warm and unhurried, the kind of space that makes difficult conversations feel manageable. She walked me through the trust document with care. My authority under Section 4.2 was broad. I could approve distributions, defer them, add conditions, or restructure the timeline entirely, and Cassie's ability to contest any decision was extremely limited as long as I acted in good faith. Christine told me that my grandmother had specifically requested this arrangement and had been unambiguous about her reasons. She said Cassie had been given things too easily her whole life and had never been asked to prove she could handle what she was handed. She wanted you to be the one to require that, Christine said. She believed you were the only person in the family who would do it with both firmness and fairness. I left her office with a clearer sense of what my grandmother had actually entrusted me with, not money. A lesson she couldn't deliver herself. The doorbell rang at 4:40 on Friday afternoon. I looked through the peephole and felt my stomach drop. My mother stood in the hallway with Cassie just behind her and my father, Tom, trailing at the back with the expression he always wore when conflict was unavoidable. They had found out. Cassie pushed past me the moment I opened the door. Brent's financial team ran a background check on our family as a standard practice, she said. They found the trust. They found your name. She laughed in disbelief. You're the trustee? You work with toddlers. My mother stepped in front of her with the smooth efficiency of someone trying to contain a spill. Nora, I've spoken with our family attorney. The most sensible arrangement would be to transfer the trustee role to me. She produced a folder from her bag. I've already had paperwork drafted. My grandmother chose me, I said. She was competent, deliberate, and well-advised. The trust is legally sound. My mother's expression shifted. Don't make this into something it doesn't need to be. This is family money. Yes, I said, and Grandma Loretta decided exactly how she wanted it managed. Cassie's voice rose. You've been sitting on my inheritance for a year and a half without saying a word. That money is supposed to fund my wedding, my house, my future. And you've just been holding it like some kind of power trip. I'm doing what I was asked to do, I said. Nothing more. My father, who had stood silently near the door as he always did, made brief eye contact with me. He looked away first. They left 20 minutes later without the signatures they came for. The following evening was the annual Harrington Benefit Gala, a black tie fundraiser for childhood literacy that I had quietly supported for 2 years. $20,000 donated annually from a personal bequest my grandmother had left me, separately from the trust. I had attended both years without fanfare, arriving early and leaving before anyone could ask too many questions. My name was in the program as a founding donor. I hadn't planned to make anything of it. But the invitation had arrived that week, and after Friday's visit, something in me had shifted. I went. The ballroom was full. I was standing near the stage, talking with one of the foundation's directors, when I spotted my family across the room. My mother in a deep burgundy gown, Cassie radiant beside Brent, who was taller and more polished than I'd imagined. They hadn't seen me. Brent was scanning the room the way people do when they're identifying who matters, and his eyes landed on my badge. Founding donor. He was beside me within 2 minutes. Cassie at his elbow, both of them wearing expressions I had never seen them wear before. He introduced himself and thanked me warmly. Then he looked at Cassie. You told me you didn't know the founding donor. She hadn't. She said she hadn't recognized me in the lighting. In the lighting, he repeated, and the temperature between them dropped visibly. Christine Avery appeared beside me at precisely the right moment, greeting Brent by name, mentioning that I was one of her most meticulous clients and that the trust I managed was in excellent hands. Cassie looked like the floor had tilted beneath her. I didn't stay for the fallout. I said my goodbyes and walked out into the cold, my badge still pinned to my coat. Behind me, I heard Brent's voice, low and clipped, asking Cassie what else he didn't know. The next 3 weeks were turbulent. Brent asked for space. The engagement was quietly suspended. Cassie lost her position at his company. Not fired, but strongly encouraged to look elsewhere. My mother received calls from everyone in her social circle. My father sent me an email that ran 4 pages long. No excuses, no requests for forgiveness, just an accounting of the ways he had failed me by staying silent for 34 years. I read it twice and saved it. On December 2nd, I signed the deferral documents at Christine's office. Distributions from the Loretta Callahan Trust to beneficiary Cassie Callahan were suspended for 12 months, pending completion of a certified personal finance course from an accredited institution. The condition wasn't punitive. It was exactly what my grandmother had intended. Cassie enrolled 2 weeks later. Her text said, "Fine, I'm doing it. Don't expect a thank you." I wrote back, "I don't need one. Good luck." My father came to Christmas dinner at my apartment. Just him. My mother called twice to ask if she could come, and I said not yet. I need more time than that. She didn't push back, which told me more than any apology could have. My father sat at my small kitchen table and listened to my friends talk, and laughed at the right moments and helped with the dishes without being asked. At one point he looked at me and said, "She would be proud of you." I knew he meant my grandmother. I nodded and didn't say anything, because some things are too full to put into words. If you've ever been made to feel invisible by the people who were supposed to see you most clearly, I want you to know that the moment you stop pretending it's acceptable is the moment everything shifts. Not because the people around you change overnight, they might not change at all, but you stop measuring your worth by what they refuse to give you. My grandmother understood that. She left me something she knew I'd need exactly when I needed it. Not money. Permission to finally stop shrinking. If this story hit close to home, drop a comment and tell me yours. Subscribe if you want to stick around. I'll see you in the next one.